bike in the boot. Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol. You know, a new Jaguar to drive is a little bit like buses. You wait ages for one and then two come along at the same time, because it was only last week I had the new Jaguar I-Pace on the channel. Today, thanks to my guys at Harwood's Jaguar Chichester, I've got the new F-Pace. And a handsome spec it is too. Can you believe the F-Pace has been around since 2016? And when it launched and Jaguar entered the SUV market, I think there were a lot of doubters. It's clearly got the kind of family DNA looks, but I think there was a question of, will people really buy a Jaguar SUV? But you look at how many of them you see on the roads, and they've done really, really well for the brand. And this new 2021 model, on first glance, looks very, very similar to the old one. And on the outside, to be fair, there aren't that many changes, which I think is a good thing, because in essence, it was a really, really good car. There are some minor design tweaks, and if you put them side by side, you would see those far, far more clearly. But this car is as much about what's on the inside and the changes that were made there than the outside. But aesthetically, on the outside, in this R-Dynamic spec, this car's very, very blacked out. I love the wheel design. The front of the car looks really aggressive. All of it's been de-chromed and blacked out, which gives it a really mean look, you know, get out my way. And then we come to the back of the car, and one of the tests I really do need to think about is just how practical this car is. I reckon you've got to be able to get a bike in the back, right? Now, I've got to say, the weather's so beautiful today. It's warm for the first time in ages. Handsome looking rear of the car. There are some slight design tweaks to the lights, and also, now these are kind of fake surrounds, but there are real exhausts in there. But it should have a really big boot, and I reckon I should be able to get a bike in the back. Oh, what are you two doing in there? Looks like we can get puppies in the back too. Yeah, there's plenty of room. I don't know whether this parcel shelf's really a big fan of that, are you? Now, should we get you out so I can see if I can get my bike in? Off you go. Now, for big subscribers to the channel, this one is now much, much better. You had us worried, didn't you, mate? But everybody, all the peddlers were really worried about you. But she's okay. She seems to be back to her normal self. So you go and play over there. So, to get the bike in the back, I'm pretty sure this parcel shelf is going to have to come off. Just give that a twist. And then just pull that out. And then the other thing I'm going to have to do is drop the seats, but I am going to try and get the bike in the back without taking the wheel off. But we shall see. So comment below if you're listening or tuning into Cycle Sunday, because hopefully you are, building my ultimate dream bike with Criterium Cycles. Now, I don't have it yet, so for now we're going to use my current dream bike, my lovely Venge. Now, those cyclists, I'm going to have to, massive apologies for the blue tyre. This is my turbo tyre, because it's been sat on my turbo trainer for the last couple of months. Let's just try and get it in, mind the paintwork and all that. Wheels on. Oh, look at that. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Winning. Now put all the seats back together. Quick rear seat space test. Not quite as much as you'd imagine, actually. The seat is in my driving position, 6'3". So I do have space. These seats are really soft and comfy, though, I must say. And yeah, it's all right. The glass panoramic roof just airs the cabin. I get bored of how many times I say that in car reviews. When you've got the option for a pan roof, it just makes the cabin so much lighter. But it is a nice place in here. You've got ISOFIX if you've got kiddies. You've got a little pull down there to make the journey comfortable. And I did check before I got in it this time. No child locks. What's the front like? Because all of the changes for me on this car all happen in the front. It's nice in here. Now, arguably, the weak point of the old F-Pace was the interior. I was never a big fan. As well as reviewing a couple on the channel, I actually spent quite a bit of time in one off camera. And they were a competent car, but I never felt that special in them. But this is completely up the game for the F-Pace. It's dominated, and I think the two things when you get in the car, the steering wheel, which we'll talk about in a moment, but then this central console where you've got the main MMI. Now this is an 11.4 inch curved touchscreen running Pivi Pro, which is Jaguar's MMI system, so the same thing I had in the I-Pace the other week. And then the other thing that's very different from the outgoing car is instead of a rotational gear selector, you've now got this quite funky, very tactile gear change with this lovely kind of stitching and leatherwork on the top. I really like that. And then the drive mode selector is now this little button here which raises up, and it's got this lovely knurled finish around it. It just feels lovely and tactile. Let me just start the car. It's just super quiet. Now we'll talk more about the specific spec of this. This is a 3-litre mild hybrid diesel. But I just really like that screen. I mentioned in the I-Pace video the other week, I love the backlight, the fact it's white. I love the font choice. It's a really easy system to navigate through. The touch screen works really well. And although I am a big fan of integrated MMI screens, if you're not going to integrate one and have a kind of iPad-esque style, I think that's about as good as you get. I really like the way that kind of just sits there. It's not stuck up garishly out of the dash. It's just sit there. It's stylish. I like it a lot. I would have preferred it had it been fully integrated, but I understand, especially with this leatherwork going behind it, it just sits really nicely. You've got the climate controls there. Little things I really like is just here, it just says established 1935 Jaguar Coventry. Love that. No idea why I do, but I really like that. And then you come over to the steering wheel. This steering wheel is really special. It looks nice. You can get in a fantastic driving position. And then the main instrument binnacle, which is again a TFT screen with a range of different options, is nice and clean and uncluttered. It is lovely in here. These seats are really nice. I could do with a little bit more support on the bottom part of the seat. I've got side bolsters, which is nice, but on the bottom, I just like it to come up a little bit to give me some support laterally for my bum. This car is beautifully spec'd. It's not the full-on high spec. So let's just talk about this car and some of the options within the range now in terms of engine options and trim levels and cost, and then we'll go for a drive. So the F-Pace starts at £40,800, and then it can go all the way up through a range of different trim levels, R-Dynamic, SE, HSE, and then the top end F-Pace is the SVR from Special Vehicle Operations. Now they start at like 77,500 quid. The car we're sat in is an R-Dynamic spec. Now I popped onto the configurator this morning and sort of played with a few things. Engine spec wise is quite interesting. There's a 2-litre and a 3-litre mild hybrid diesel. This is the 3-litre mild hybrid diesel. There's petrol variants, there's plug-in hybrid variants, and then there's the big V8 5-litre that's in the SVR. So you've got plenty of engine choice. But if you start plugging in a few nice options, select a nice external paint colour and so on, I think you're probably looking at the kind of 55 to 60,000 quid, and you can go higher than that if you're not careful as well. So for me, that's the ballpark. Although it says starting at just over 40,000 quid, by the time you put a nice bit of spec, choose a decent engine option, I think that sort of 55 to 60,000 pounds is probably where you are. But it's a premium product. It feels like a premium product. So I think what we need to do is take this car out for a drive, because the two F-Paces I've driven in the past, I've driven the SVR, I'll put a card above, brilliant thing, although sadly the SVR came out after all of the OPF and various emissions laws, and it just was killed by a lack of noise and emotion because of emissions regulations, unfortunately, which flattened the experience for me a little bit. And then the other F-Pace I've driven was the 2-litre diesel, and I always thought that this car, a 2-litre diesel, just didn't have enough oomph for the size and weight of car. You really needed that 3-litre diesel. This car's got 300 PS, so it should go. And certainly driving it back home from the dealership this morning, it's very smooth, very quiet, and has that feeling of power. So let's put it through its paces on a few roads and talk about how it is to drive. I'm going to start this review in comfort mode, and to be honest, so far that's the main mode I've been driving the car around in. The very first thing that strikes you about this car is it is super smooth and super quiet. It's such a mature place to be, and I mean that in a really good way. I don't mean mature as in you need to be an old fart to drive it. I mean it's just grown up and mature and gives you this feeling of quality and waftability. It's really very nice. The other thing, while I'm driving along, I was thinking, it's been a while since I've driven a reasonably powerful diesel. In fact, it's probably been a while since I've driven a diesel full stop. And you very quickly forget just how smooth and effortless they are. And this is definitely the case. And instantly, my misgivings about the F-Pace when it had a 2-litre diesel disappear straight away with this 3-litre unit. It's just got so much waftability and oomph. It's really impressive. In fact, it does make me think, why is it we're demonising them? Because they're so good at what they do, and with all the filters on this car, they are still clean cars. I know they're not EVs and they're not hybrids, but they're clean, and this one's really good. The suspension in this comfort setting is quite soft. Oh, I see, nice little drag out of there. It's quite soft, but it soaks up the bumps, and the car just kind of moves around over them. It doesn't wallow, but it just moves around over them and gives a lovely kind of glidey feel. But to be honest, if this were my car, I probably wouldn't be driving it in comfort mode that often. I'd move the little drive mode selector and I'd click it over into, I'm not going to go to eco because I do that on a motorway. I've actually started doing that quite a bit more nowadays. If I'm on a motorway and I know I've got, I don't know, 50 miles in cruise control at 70, I just stick the car in eco. And it, you know, it's fine. But as soon as you come off of a motorway situation, I always find eco modes to be a bit dead and a bit boring and a bit dull. And in some cars, they're so dead to the throttle, I find them quite dangerous because they just don't have the pickup and the go that you really need. So we're going to put this car into dynamic mode. I love the fact the kind of dials go red. And then as soon as this 30's finished, we're going to push on a little bit. Right, here we go. Oh, hello. It's got such smooth power delivery, it doesn't make a great noise. It's a diesel, but my goodness me, does it gather speed quickly. Coming into this corner, it's got a lot of weight to it, a lot of mass, but we got a lot of pull out of the corners. This 8-speed auto box is pretty responsive, but I can improve the response by just pulling the gear selector towards me once, and that drops it into sport mode in dynamic, and that just makes the throttle response just that little bit more responsive to me. I can go into the various settings on the main MMI screen and change throttle response, steering feel, even the suspension. I could soften that up if I wanted to in this dynamic mode, but everything's set to the max, and I have to say it feels lovely. Next thing, I'm going to just use these paddles and just come down onto the paddles. The downshifts are pretty good, and then out of the corner. Oh, super smooth change on the way up. I did not expect this car to be so sprightly. Oh! Now then, I hear you cry, is there anything you don't like about it, Ped? I'm really struggling. I really am. There's a couple of little things. I've mentioned already, the seat for me doesn't quite have enough support on the bottom part of the seat. And the gearbox, when you're actually going, it's smooth and it changes gear really nicely. However, the start-stop comes in annoyingly. It's not predictable, so sometimes it stops, sometimes it doesn't, and there's a little hesitation when you're just pulling away. And that means that sometimes, I haven't managed to catch it on camera, but sometimes at T-junctions and when you're pulling away, you're not actually quite sure whether the car's in gear or not, whether it's dropped down into park, whether the engine's going, and that's annoying. And I know you can turn the start-stop off, but I find that in quite a few modern cars, when they have start-stop, sometimes I think they just get themselves into a right tiz, and you never know whether the car's turned on or not. And this diesel's so quiet, actually at tick over, it's difficult to work out whether it is actually on. In terms of things I like, well, the styling from the outside, I've always been a fan of the F-Pace, and I know many people aren't, but I've always quite liked it. I've liked the way the Jaguar managed to get an SUV car to look like a modern Jaguar. There's a lot of F-type in the rear, for example, and I like that, and I like the fact they haven't played with it too much. They've just kind of kept the formula, they've tweaked it a little bit, they've tweaked the rear lights, have just changed the front a little part, and they haven't done too much, so it's not too jarring from the outside. It's the inside for me that makes this car special. The interior is one of the nicest places I've sat in a long time. It's super in here, it's very, very comfortable. The seats are very comfortable. The driving position is excellent. I've got all the toys and the gimmicks I could possibly want in this car. I haven't even mentioned the Meridian Hi-Fi, which is brilliant. And I like it, and I love this MMI that Jaguar have got going now. It's really, really very good. I'd love to do a long journey in this car. I always find whenever you only have a car for a day, the faults, the things that you don't like, come out in a car for me when you spend a prolonged period of time in them. They don't come out in a day's long test drive. You know, the things that make you ache, the things that annoy you, they generally start to wear you down after a few hours in the car. But it's been a beautiful sunny day and an amazing experience to just get to grips with this fantastic little Jaguar F-Pace. So what are my final impressions of the Jaguar F-Pace? Well, as our American cousins would say, good job! Jaguar, you've done a great job uplifting this. You've improved all the things that needed to be improved, and you've left alone the things that were fine. And that's a very, very tricky play if you are a car manufacturer. And many, many car manufacturers get it wrong for me. But Jaguar have nailed this one. The sad thing for me, though, is if you watch my recent I-Pace video, internal combustion engines are a thing of the past for Jaguar as of 2025. We've only got 4 years left of this car, and it's such a shame because it's an absolute peach. The engine's brilliant, the drivability, the power delivery, it's just an all-round great package, and I find it so sad that we're going to say goodbye to that. And I know why, and you know, the comments section will erupt with all the kind of tree huggers and polar bear lovers, but I do get it. I understand the environmental concerns and so on. However, it's such a shame because this is such a good car. By the way, MPG wise, I haven't even mentioned that. I'm averaging about 25 MPG on this test, but that's because I'm doing lots of start-stop and I'm not particularly driving efficiently. However, the long-term average in this car is about 30 miles to the gallon, which for a car of this size isn't too bad. But yeah, such a shame. Anyway, massive thanks to Dan and all the guys at Harwood's Jaguar Chichester for letting me have access to the car. It's been a lovely day. I've really enjoyed it. For a start, the weather's been fantastic, and I'm actually getting a bit of sweat on now. I've not been hot like this for ages. But yeah, it's been a great experience. I hope you've enjoyed that one. Let me know what you think of the new Jaguar F-Pace and what you think of the fact that we'll only see this car for another 4 years, which is really sad. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film, guys. But you take care. Drive safe.